I'm a scientist.
Suffice it that the blood of 1,000 men and women was spilled within these walls. Limbs twisted and broken. Eyes gouged from bloody sockets. Flesh burned black.
Please. No way for dead. In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escapes. What you have to realize is that we're all just a mouse that a cat has by the tail.
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
Warning, the following show contains conservative posturing, radical Christian ideas, and may offend pagans, Wiccans, Islamic fundamentalists, and other unenlightened individuals. Callers and guests may be subjected to brash and offensive comments by the hosts and any other type of bullying tactics available. But that's okay. We know why you're here.
This concludes this test of the emergency broadcast system.
Tonight is Monday, July 23rd, 2007.
Full listeners to World of the Unexplained. This is Jay Scott.
This is D. How you doing
Trent's
tonight?
not here. Trent is in
he's out of town.
Massachusetts. Yes. With all those Yankees. No, we love all you guys. Really, we do. We just like to poke a little fun from time to time. I'm trying to get in the chat room, and I can't. I don't know what's going on. We change from one chat room to the next, and then we end up back with the same chat room problem again, which is we can't get in the daggone thing. So, keep trying if you're trying to get in, and we'll hopefully see you there. Tonight we have Ron Paul Hunter on the show. We're bringing him back, and with a special guest, and we'll disclose that guest later on in the show.
Keeping it close to the vest, I see.
That's it. We are. So what's new with you, Chuck?
Well, I was just telling you before the show, man, about the whole advent of the Ron Mexico case this week.
Yeah.
Him and his organized crime. Apparently, there may be some RICO charges down the pipeline with it. But he's just in the state of Virginia. Apparently, he's facing about 6 years, and it does my heart good as a Panthers fan to see it happen.
He's not going to serve a day in any kind of jail, club fed maybe.
Well, they say they're putting the strong arm on him to turn over some of the other cohorts. I guess his cousin
and he's going to turn. He is, man. He's like, I ain't going to jail, dude. Nah.
Well, he's got a promising career,
singing like a bird, dude.
He still thinks he's gonna play football this season. I don't know what the chances are. I mean, I guess I'll believe that he's suspended when I see it.
What makes a guy with that kind of money, that kind of career, throw it all away because he wants to watch a couple dogs fight?
It's that I think that's what happens when you get to that level of economic, or financial security. That you get bored with the mundane activities.
Oh yeah,
you got to start thinking up.
Other ways to spend your time.
Yeah,
and your money. I mean,
$10,000 a pop on dog fights.
$10,000.
That's got to be a federal charge right there.
And if it's not, it should be.
It should be exactly.
That's awesome.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money to us.
Well, apparently not to him. That was my point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
God, it's unbelievable. It's about as unbelievable as the Democrats and their wonderful candidates this year.
Okay, come on, man.
Save that for the other show.
Oh wow, look! It looks like I might be able to sign in the chat room. We'll see how this works out here. All right, Tammy Faye Baker died. Friday, was it, or Saturday?
It was, I think, day before yesterday.
Yeah, I think it
maybe
was day before yesterday.
Yeah, well, I saw her on Larry King, one of the older interviews. It was kind of weird. I watched it.
She was always just sort of a sad woman. I always just remember every interview she was ever in, constantly seeing her crying in that mascara.
Running down her face. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember this back in the 80s. There were T-shirts, and it looked like a makeup smudges all over a white T-shirt, and it said, I ran into Tammy Faye at the mall or something. Yeah.
Yep.
What was that organization? That PTL? Is that what it was?
Yeah, it sounds right.
And they had an amusement park that they were
that
Skimming
Fletch
money
2
off
makes
of.
fun of. You know, Chevy Chase and Fletch 2. Where
Oh,
they got the Bible and amusement park.
That's right. I love that film, man.
That is a great film.
I really
Both
do.
of the Fletch movies are really good. And you know, they make a whole series of books about the Fletch character.
Karaoke Fletch or Karaoke Fletch. I can't remember the name of the author either, but yeah, there are over a dozen, I think.
Oh yeah, different Fletch books.
I've never seen them.
They're at the bookstore.
Well, I'll have to check them out.
Under the Fletch section. No, I don't.
Under the Fletch
They're
section?
in the fiction section somewhere. I don't know. I'm going to find the author's name during this.
Yeah, it's old school detective fiction.
Yeah, good stuff.
Apparently, I don't know. I guess Chevy Chase, according to somebody I talked to, is a big fan of Fletch. Doesn't quite do him justice. He captures, I guess, some of the nuances of him, but
What is he more like?
I guess he's not as bumbling.
Yeah, he's more cool. Yeah. He's more James Bond.
Not as quirky.
But I'm a big Chevy Chase fan
I am
anyway.
too.
So.
You know whatever happened to him? He did a kids movie last year, and that's it.
He's a big contributor, actually, to the Democrats. He was one of the biggest
God,
contributors of celebrities to Kerry's campaign. I think
figures.
he donated about $40,000.
Didn't Bruce Willis donate something too?
Well, he's a Republican.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's
good.
what I figured.
He's a diehard, my kind of guy. Diehard kind of guy.
I was about to say earlier, it doesn't seem the Republicans are too terribly happy about their candidates either here.
No, they're not, and they shouldn't be because they're all terrible.
I hate to say it, but McCain is looking old, man. I love the guy. I love the guy.
McCain's just such a flip flopper, though.
He needs to go back to the Senate, man, and campaign from there. Actually, make some stuff happen and just run his campaign from the floor of the Senate, man. There's money where his mouth is. I think that's the strategy that would get him the nomination.
It might. I don't know. Didn't he fire a lot of people? A lot of aides?
He fired a bunch.
Yeah, he fired a bunch of them.
Former Bush aides. Who would hire a bunch of Bush aides after Bush's approval rating has been in the toilet for the last
20-some
2 or 3
percent or
years?
something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what he was thinking, and he paid them, all these consultants, an enormous amount of money. And now he's broke.
Who was the guy? They had a guy on I think it was on Hannity and Combs. It was like a consultant for, I think, Al Gore's campaign. The guy's lost so many campaigns in a series.
Bob Shrum.
And it's just why is anyone listening to him?
He's also the one that had the smear piece that he wrote in his latest book about Edwards.
Oh,
about
okay.
how he uses his dead son as a political prop. And
that is so wrong.
It really is
that
pretty
is
wrong. Although he didn't want to give Hannity the satisfaction when he was on there, so he kind of backed off a little bit on it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
But you know what? Who wants to listen to a guy like that? Really?
Well, who would want to take advice? When you're running a multi-million-dollar campaign,
It's like, hey, let's
from a
hire
guy
this guy. He's
that-
lost.
It's 0-9.
0-9. Is it that bad?
He ran Muskie's campaign, McGovern's, Dukakis's,
Oh,
Gore's.
God.
I'm sure that
I want to
Kerry's-
lose. We're hiring you.
I'm sure there's some other stinkers back there that I could rattle my brain for. Maybe one of the failed Carter campaign, the second one, the re-election.
Yeah. Carter's a good guy, though. I'll give him that. He did some stupid things, but he's a nice guy. He's an honest guy.
The connection between his brain and his mouth doesn't appear to work all the time.
No, well, but I think he's probably one of the most honest presidents we've had.
He's also the one that brought the Christian right into the White House, too.
Well, there's
Everyone
nothing
likes
wrong
to
with
credit
that.
Reagan with that,
Yeah.
but it really was.
It was Carter.
Jimmy Carter,
Oh, yeah. Well, he
JC,
also
JC.
Didn't he let Willie Nelson smoke a doobie on top of the White House?
I think I
that was
have.
during
I have
administration,
heard
yeah.
that story as well.
So Dee and I were at a cookout this weekend.
That's right.
That Chuck didn't make it to. We invited
Unfortunately,
Chuck.
yeah, I had
Chuck's
had too
just
much
a
work,
homebody, man. He never comes out.
I honestly,
he doesn't answer his phone when we call him.
I would have loved to come out at that point, man. I was stressing so bad about this project. I just would have loved to put it off even further, man. And
we had a good time. Dee is a master grillsman. I'll have to say that.
Yeah, I kind of took over.
He did, and he was very he's very good because I thought the coals were at the point where they were just getting white hot, and it was like, oh man, it looked like we were losing it. And Dee's like, don't worry.
No, we're all right.
We're all right. And he sat there with it, and man, you know what? It turned out to be one of the best cookouts I've been to in a long time as far as the food.
what were you making?
Well, let's see. We had hot dogs, hamburgers, and then chicken.
Yeah, marinated
chicken. I think it was what the.
We had
it was like a mustard marinated
honey
chicken,
mustard kind of thing, and
then
yeah,
I don't know what the other one was. I
think
remember.
it's Southwest or something.
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
It's good stuff, man. It was real good.
That sounds like it was a good time, man.
Yeah,
I'm sorry I missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the funny thing is we did all that, and the grill was probably only about
it's a
I don't
small
know,
grill.
about 14 inches long,
You know,
about 8 inches.
It was a tiny little Weber charcoal. Is that what it was?
So small.
It's great though. He got them all on there, man. He's like stacking them like little Tetris things, man. It was cool. He had it going on. I guess it's time for
a Tetris reference.
Time to call the guest. So, but yeah. I mean, it was good. It was good. He's a trained professional, this man.
I try.
Okay, I've got somebody in the chat room now besides myself. I don't know who it is, though.
Icky Split.
Yeah. Password and stuff.
Full
Had to
screen
sign
name.
up again, yeah. Huh. Oh, well. We'll see. I just put in hi. Well, tonight we've got Ron Paul Hunter coming back on. He's going to talk to us about the issues of what to do, what's going to happen in the future, I guess. If something were to happen really big, and how we all need to get together and help one another. So that should be interesting. He's going to bring a surprise guest. I'm not going to tell who that is right now, but he's going to have a surprise guest on with him later tonight. Oh, okay. That's Gail. Okay. Hey, Scott, it's me, Gail. Okay, that's Dee's wife. All right. I don't know. The chat room is just dead tonight, but that's okay. We know you're there. If you guys have tried to sign in and can't, you can register because this is a new chat thing we're using. So, with that said, we will bring on Mr. Ron Paul Hunter. How are you doing, Ron?
Just fine, Jay. How are you guys tonight?
We're doing good. Actually, you sound a lot better this week than last week. I don't know. We had a weird connection with you last time.
Yeah, that happens sometimes, man. The cell phones are a little tough. I was talking with a friend of mine the first time that I was on World of the Unexplained, and I called him up to tell him I was going to be on that night, and he connected. It took a couple seconds, and it took a while to get there, but it turns out he was in Greece the whole time. He just picked up his phone and was like, hello, what's going on? I was like, well, I'm going to be on the radio. You should tune in. He's like, well, maybe I'll try to do that, but I'm going to have to figure out what the time difference is. And it was clear as a bell. I mean, I could hear him. It sounded like he was talking in the next room.
Wow, that's awesome. Awesome. So, Ron, let's, for those that missed the first time, since we unfortunately lost the podcast, let's start from the beginning of your story and tell our listeners what's going on.
Okay. If I'm going to start at the beginning of my story, it goes a ways back. But what roughly I wanted to talk to everybody and to you tonight about was some civil defense ideas that I've been working over for a while, and these have taken a long time to develop. I'm trying to put forward a legislative effort for Christians in America to get involved, not in a political manner as opposed to, say, a religious manner. I don't want to change the focus of what we do away from Christianity, but I would like to see that focus turn back towards participating more as a nation. And I've got a sort of a coining phrase. I wanted to go ahead and get those out tonight. First off is my website, in case somebody wants to take a look at what I've developed, is www.civilizationcontinuity.org, which is it's a domain that I own, and all the information is there on the main page. What I want to talk about tonight is something I'm calling Resolution to Promote Civil Defense Through Faith-Based Initiatives, and it's featuring a civil defense process I've been developing for a few years I call civilization continuity. It's just a word. It's not meant to scare anybody. It's just a way of talking about civil defense. And what I've tried to coin is the fact that we have 1 million people in the military, and the military does a lot of wonderful things for our country, but I'm calling it the 299 Act, which means basically the other 299 people in our country, since we don't have a draft, aren't required to participate in the government at all, much less in the military. So that puts a lot of a burden on our military personnel overseas, and when they come back, because they have to deal with, people that don't have any concept of what they've been through. So what I'm trying to put together is basically around 4 large charitable organizations, and hopefully the head of one of those charitable organizations will be on in a few minutes to talk with you. And those 4 organizations are the Red Cross, Salvation Army, Habitat for Humanity, and the last one is Stop Hunger Now. And I know many people may not know about Stop Hunger Now. Jay, have you heard about that, or Trent?
Actually, Trent's not with us tonight. He's in Massachusetts. So sitting in, we have Mr. D. Clements.
Hi, D. Clements.
Hey, how you doing?
Great.
I'm doing double duty tonight.
Excellent.
Yeah, he's doing doubles. So what? Yeah, Stop Hunger Now. I'm not familiar with it. Chuck, are you?
I'm familiar with the name. I think it's one of these NGO organizations. Is that correct?
Right, it is. And the founder of it will be hopefully with us a little bit later. His name is Ray Buchanan. And
Very nice.
Stop Hunger Now is a national share house program that has developed with the United Methodist Church, and has got a lot of has got a very powerful civil defense and ministry thing going. They prepare famine relief meals, and what congregations can do, or major universities are doing it too, is to go forward and put meals together. But I'm going to stop and let Ray tell you a little bit more about that.
Okay.
What it is that I'm trying to put together is to create an easy way for people in congregations or in conjunction with the public education system. I don't know if you remember what we talked about last time. Do you remember anything from last time? Or
I do.
Yeah, I remember a little.
I just want you to. I want you to give your overall, so people that missed it last time are going to be able to hear it this time.
Okay. Well, we were talking about last time about how when we had a draft in the United States, it was specifically to support the military service. In other words, and I've been doing some reading, so my message is tuned up just a little bit, but basically the way it went was, it used to be that you had a military, and the military dealt with war, but then the other militaries wouldn't attack civilians. Once you got to World War I, and Germany started to attack through Europe, they were using their entire nation and using a lot of flying craft to attack the other areas that civilians lived in that normally weren't part of the war before. That engaged civil defense, which did two things. One, it was citizens protecting other citizens, and the second was that it was an entire national effort. In other words, it had recycling, it had medical backup, but all of it was still aimed at the military output, even though there were a lot of great programs in food preservation and how to build shelters and all those things. It's still, between World War I and World War II, it just got worse, as of course you know, which ended in atomic detonations over Japan. So that sent the civil defense profile right off the edge, where it went past. Remember, we ended the show last time talking about General and President Eisenhower when he left office, how he had said that beware of the military-industrial complex. Don't put all your eggs in the military basket, right?
Oh, yes.
Right,
So
yeah.
what this is trying to go up to the point where we can realize that we're asking the military without paying them that much more or giving them that much better. Well, they actually are getting a lot better equipment, but they're still doing the same job that a draft military did. And depending on them for everything is a really bad idea when we've got the other 299 people sitting around, a majority of which are Christians. So where we were getting to last time was extending the civil defense, the general principle of civil defense, and which once again, all this can be found on the website. If you're listening out there, please feel free to call into the show. What was the number again, Jay?
877-722-7382 or 877-SCARE-YOU2 or locally 336-996-1596.
And that works even on the affiliates that are listening in Arizona on, what was the radio station again?
KWSS in Scottsdale, Arizona, as well as we've got Robin Valley in Omaha, Nebraska, and quite a few others. Snoqualmie, East Hill Radio. Yeah, it works everywhere.
Excellent. Right, so a lot of people are extremely upset, especially I'm a United Methodist, and when I look at all the conventions, the United Methodist Church has conventions, and it has a worldwide convention. There's 7 million people, I think, in the U.S., but there's 75 million people worldwide, so there's a lot of United Methodists, and one of the major concerns they have is the U.S. government in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. They see this as a bad thing overall for Christianity and also for the United Methodist Church, United States of America. So part of what I'm trying to do, and I was in the military, so, you know, I have to back the military once they're out there and once they're deployed. You know, that was part of my life, and I can't do anything but say, you know, they are in a tough spot. They have to do what they're asked to do, and yet they're doing it without the full support of the country. What I propose is, since the majority, you know, as many people are going into the military, probably close to as many as we need right now, but we have a whole lot of other people that aren't really doing too much of anything. So to get them involved, the easiest way to do it is you've got two primary groups of people that you're worried about for civil defense. That's the general population, and that's the people surrounding the public education system. And remember when we talked around about Katrina, how reestablishing the public school system was the basis for allowing children to leave their parents so that the parents could go to work and earn a salary, and the salary pays the taxes. Taxes is what reestablishes the city. So naturally, I'm really big on education. And what I've written into this act is the retention of enough federal personnel to go out and start teaching civil defense in conjunction with the public school system, run very extensive simulations along the lines of very unorthodox things, such as is suggested by Al Gore, or that we might get into an hour or two if we get the time and we got the energy, is to go into some of the things that happened to me that led me to take civil defense as seriously as I do, I guess you might say. I had some very vivid dreams about asteroids hitting the Earth. And that may sound kind of crazy to some people who are listening out there, but it really happened to me, and it really does happen to a lot of people. And it's very vivid, and it's very religious and very moving when it happens. So, and we'll get into that later. And that was part of the reason why I take civil defense so seriously. But what I wanted to see was a modern version of civil defense that didn't necessarily go 100% to military output. Of course, you retain military people in a civil defense structure that has a built-in thing. And I want to talk a little bit more about that later when we get into talking about Jesus and about the royal house of David and what it meant to be royalty. What it means to be a Christian is, you're worshiping in conjunction with the royalty of the house of David, and it has very specific procedures and civil defense measures that I think are built into Christianity already. And part of why people don't feel really strongly about Christianity sometimes is they don't take the time to realize what those are and how wholesome a way of life it really is when you put it all together. So, and we can also go into, what we were talking about a little bit last time, which was the intent of President Bush. A lot of people are very upset about the intent of President Bush. You guys still there?
Oh, we're still here. We're just listening.
Okay, all right. I don't want to talk to you.
No. You were talking about the intent of President Bush. We're still listening.
I definitely want to hear where you were getting with that, yeah.
Okay, well, look, this is what I truly believe. And this is with me having the gifted and talented in history, and I can analyze the teetotal heckle. I can analyze the mess out of almost any situation, and I do take a lot of time doing this. I do a lot of reading, and I listen a lot to what people tell me, and I talk to a lot of people. But that President Bush, when he created the faith-based initiative, totally slipped under the radar of the nation's Christians. You do not realize what a great opportunity he has laid out before the country, because through this opportunity, it gives us, the Christians of America, the opportunity to write legislation. And a lot of people have very misguided concepts of what the government is. Like, I think last time we were on the air, a guy, one of the people called in from Canada and was talking about separation of church and state, and was talking about how you can't participate as a Christian congregation in a state-held activity because that violates the separation of church and state. I was very adamant at telling him the separation of church and state only says that the president won't declare himself to be God, that he won't say, I am president and I am God.
Well, it's not. It's been interpreted to say other things. Besides
true,
that.
But I consider that to be somewhat dramatic when we're dealing with issues of national survival. It's to stray away from your foundational concepts. Is to be mired in a conversation that won't get you where you want to go.
Well,
I truly believe that.
We're gonna take our first break, Ron. If you'll hang out with us, we'll be back on World of the Unexplained in just a little bit. Guys, please, you can call in here 877-722-7382. I'm sorry about the chat room; it doesn't seem to be working tonight. I was on, it was off.
Jay, I sent you a page, and it's not. The links on it aren't working, so we better not put it up. I'm sorry about that.
Not a problem.
I just do a little better.
Not a problem. But we will. We'll be right back here in just a little bit with Mr. Ron Paul Hunter talking about civil defense right after this. And we're back. World of the Unexplained. Ron Paul Hunter. Guys, you can give us a call here, 877-722-7382. That's 877-SCARE-YOU-2. Toll-free in the United States and Canada, or locally 336-996-1596. The chat room that we've switched to is down, so if you go to karmacast.com, that's with two Ks, /chat//flashchat.php. I know that's a lot to remember. The best thing to do is just go to another website, go to one of our other links. How did I access this? Let me look. Click on the links button on our page, worldoftheunexplained.com, and then click on chat button from the links page. That's the only way you're going to be able to access this. So click on there, and we'll see you in here in a little bit. So, Ron, we were talking on the break about some of the visions that you had early on. Can you go through some of those with us?
Sure, yeah. It was started back in 1996, and I was just starting to go back into the National Guard. Well, actually, I've been in the National Guard since 1994, and I was going back to NC State to get a degree in geology.
Okay.
And so as I was going to school, various things, I think it was in April of 1996, I had this very vivid dream. And if you want, I can read it. I've got what I put on the Internet, what I posted back in 1996, which is 10 years or more ago. So do you want me to read it?
Yeah, hang on just a second, though. We've got a first caller, Gail.
Okay.
Gail, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm doing great. I guess we call this Lexington, North Carolina. I don't know. Is that
Clemens?
Is that right? Clemens?
Yeah.
Okay. Clemens, North Carolina.
What is that near?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's in Davidson County.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, how are you doing? My first question is, I went to your website, the Civilization Continuity, and I was reading some of it, and you, in there, sort of, it seems like you're including the whole of United Methodist Church and the conferences as your backing. Do you have an okay from them to do that?
No, that's not what. If it's coming across that way, then I need to rewrite it.
Right, because it says at one point something about with the approval of this resolution, we will follow through with suggested resolutions for consideration by the UMC and upon agreement submission, blah, blah, blah.
Right. That's what I tried to do. Was there was recently a meeting of the Southeastern Conference of the United Methodist Church, and I was with a friend of mine who has written political legislation before. I had to get his help to write that. So this is the best effort that he could put together on short notice, and I have sort of adapted it and tried to put as much information as I can in there, but in order to send it to the church, you have to write it in a certain form to see if they will adopt it. So that's what this is supposed to be. It's not, I don't have any backing of the United Methodist Church, even though I've talked extensively with this, with my reverend who's, well, I go to church in Raleigh, the United Methodist Church in Raleigh. I don't know if they, you know, if I should say it over the air just to give them too much popularity, but it's, well, I guess it doesn't really matter. It's Westover United Methodist Church. It's downtown near the fairgrounds, and the reverend is Reverend Johnny Wright. So I talk a lot with him about this, and he, as far as I know, has given me his blessing. We were trying to submit this to the Southeastern Conference, but it didn't get developed enough in time. So, and I'm kind of on my own doing it. It's tough to get people to get interested in this level of civil defense commitment.
Right. And then my comment was, as it is difficult to get people interested in not only governmental service but community service, would it not, you said it would be easy to get people to do this through faith-based initiatives. Wouldn't it just be easier to get people to participate civilly or military-wise if we had something sort of like Israel where everyone between a certain age would have to commit 1 year to either military or some sort of civil service, whether it was Peace Corps or AmeriCorps or something in your community, being a filing clerk at your local.
Wait a minute, Gil. We're starting to sound like a socialist here.
And other countries.
Well, you have to be careful. You can't use an Israeli solution for America in the first place. America has to have an American.
Well, other countries do it as well, and it would get, not only would it get people to understand that this country needs everyone to help. You can't just rest on your laurels and reap all the benefits that everybody else has worked so hard for without having to give something of yourself. That's what America's partially founded on, is you must work hard and give of yourself to make not only your life better, but your community and your nation's life better.
Right. I totally, I agree with what you're saying wholeheartedly to the point, but the means that which we will try to accomplish this with are going to require very precisely worded legislation and leave very little to chance. What I would like to see is people to not feel that they have any bar or any kind of hindrance to them participating in civil defense programs. In the first place, it's not as dark as I may be making it sound. I've been in this for a long time and trying to get my point across for a long time. So I tend to maybe overshoot it a little bit. There's a lot of things that are already very much civil defense oriented, built into our system that we have. But more and more people are starting to see that this system it's got two problems with it. One, it was designed in the 1950s for the size of the population as it was then. Then most of it was dismantled. So our civil defense system has got a lot of holes in it, and it could use manpower. It could also use budgeting. But part of what I was trying to see people who are very concerned about the war, and what I see is a selfish America too, especially politically. A lot of Americans are very much into attacking the government. They want to all seize power. They don't realize that to really be a Christian, you have to restore your functional link with God. And part of that functional link with God is in service to other people. So in going into programs that the federal government will enable at a county of residence level is where the interface should begin for the citizen. In other words, in the concept I've got designed, if you are part of a religious congregation or a civic group for that matter, it can be faith-based or it can just be a civic assembly. What I want to see the government extend to you is, say, when you get with 500 people, that there'll be a series of 12 programs, one every month that you can participate in, say every 2 weeks, giving 4 hours of your time, that will be the same nationwide and of such a tremendous scope and engineered design that all those man hours will start to add up and will make a big difference in areas not only of poverty, but like hunger relief or in doing things like responding to Hurricane Katrina. We still haven't adequately done that, and I have to confess, I'm a FEMA inspector. I responded to Hurricane Katrina and went down into the Beaumont, Texas area.
My church has had a couple of mission trips already.
Right, and I went down there on behalf of the federal government, and it was sometimes very heart-wrenching to know that there was not much you could do for people besides give them a few $1,000s and a list of information they might further pursue. You're talking about, I think it was 150,000 households that were affected. So a tremendous
but also, does it not have to do with those people taking care of themselves? Many of those people that were affected by Hurricane Katrina did not have insurance on their homes and are looking toward the government to basically build them a new house and give them money. And does it not start with yourself?
Okay. I see your point of view, but you got to remember that your point of view looking from people having a house and having insurance is based upon a certain climactic model. It's based on the climate not changing and things staying the same, just like they did through most of the last 150, 200 years, that this country has been growing as an industrial thing and not as an agrarian thing. So we've put more and more agricultural surplus time into becoming more and more specialized. So a lot of what I'm trying to put and build back into the system is to take that back a little bit, where we have more of a power to go back and to, like you said, provide for themselves. Okay, the citizens in a disaster can't really provide for themselves, but the way even the classic civil defense models were geared up was people outside of the community would come in to help them. Congregations are doing that, but your congregation, what did your congregation do, by the way, if you don't mind me asking?
We sent so far 2 mission trips down to help with Habitat Humanity, help build houses. The Moravian Church has a Moravian disaster relief group that goes to all sorts of areas where it's been whether it's been hurricanes, mudslides, forest fires, and helps people rebuild, and not only gives them supplies to get them through the next month, 2 months, as far as groceries or things like that, but also, they tore down houses and rebuilt new ones and things like that.
Sure, and that's what I'm talking about. But what I'm envisioning is at the county of residence level that the people who are able to do that kind of response can go into a program, bring federal people in who are medically trained, and go through a medically screening process so that you find people who are capable of doing the demanding physical work that civil defense entails, and then bring in further people to train them and start a nationwide civil defense organization. And I did some math. It's like if every county can produce continuously a 20-man team into a bus, and the county can only produce one 20-man team and one bus that carries a 20-man team down there and maybe a truck with some equipment in it, you get 3,000 counties producing 20 people. That's like 60,000 people. I believe that's right. Or anyway, it's something like 6,000 people, 60,000 people. My math is a little shaky when I'm trying to do a broadcast. Sorry. Anyway, if you take that number of people and you multiply it by a 12-hour workday, paying them, say, $100 an hour instead of just asking them to volunteer, then you get something like 720,000 man-hours per day that you could be applying in the field to, say, reconstruct an entire village that the nation had built in a manner.
That's what I want to know, Ron. Who's going to pay the $100 an hour?
Initiative says the faith-based initiative is a little fuzzy at first, but it's very specific in the end. You go out and do the work first, and the government is supposed to reimburse you to cover the cost of you taking care of business for the government. So basically what I'm saying is in legislation, we need as Christians, not just the United Methodist Church or the Moravian Church or any other one singular church, but all American citizens who are Christians.
Hey, Ron.
The legislation as far as possible.
Ron, this is Chuck.
That limit has to be delineated in legislation for the government to respond. We can't ask our government to do something and good-naturedly expect them to do it. It's something that, legislation is how people hold the government accountable. If you can't get legislation passed, then it's time to start talking very seriously.
Ron, I think Chuck's got something that he wants to say.
Well, I've got to ask you, man. You keep talking about privatizing FEMA through this faith-based initiative. I got to ask you, man, are you a free market enterprise sort of guy? Because this faith-based initiative is just nothing more than another entitlement. I mean, it may be one that's amiable to the Christian right, or
like me. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
But I mean, there's very little that's free market about it. You're not really providing a subcontractor. You're just sticking it into another branch of the federal government. as an entitlement.
Here's the way I'm looking at it, is that we need to do something to save America. We've trusted governments for quite some time now, and we're at a $900 billion trade deficit with a communist country, communist China, I believe, or more. We pay them a lot of money. A lot of our factories are being shut down in America. So, yeah, did I design into this federal enlistment program a series of people to go out and do business continuity assessments and start to integrate an inter-county or redevelop the inter-county trading network? But the thing is, all right, we're talking about a vehicle for national survival. This is a very specific thing. I suppose when I play around with the word civil defense, I'm not conveying that, say, and we wanted to go into the visions, and some of the visions that I've had are very vivid. If you look in the last book of the Bible in Revelation, some people interpret Revelations different ways, and there's a very distinct thing that I'm trying to implement. Or
hey, Ron, hang on just a minute. Hang on just a minute, buddy. Gail, are you still with us?
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay, did you have anything more for Ron tonight?
I might have something later.
Okay, well, just give us a call back.
later.
All right, bye.
Thanks.
All right, bye.
Thanks, Gail.
All right. Sorry about that. I just want to make sure she wasn't stuck there on the line. I wanted to open it up for some more people, too, that wanted to call in here. 877-SCARE-U2, 877-722-7382. Go ahead, Ron. You were talking about Revelation.
Well, yeah, I was going to go into Revelations, but like I said, I've got a lot of ground to cover. Let me try to get it all up to speed. Is that we're talking about a vehicle for national survival. Should we go into serious things? What, callers, if you're going to call in, what do you think Al Gore's talking about? Jay, you have something on your website called Planet X Inbound. You want to go over a few minutes and talk with people about what that means or what that possibly could mean?
Sure.
I've seen a lot of disturbing things, and one of the dreams, I've had two dreams. I had a dream where I went to diving school that a giant, we were all standing around in a harbor. This tremendous explosion went off, and we were all looking up in the sky to see what it was. We looked out about the harbor. It was like, a mile away. And here comes a tremendous wall of steam and water, looked like an ash cloud, billowing right at me. And it was, I have a very dramatic thing. If you want, I'll take a second and read it.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, and this dream starts with me viewing a one slip in a large harbor, and it's where I went to dive school at. The setting was daylight, and for some reason it seemed to be warm, which set in Southern California in L.A. Harbor. So there were little or no clouds in the sky, and there was a hush in the air, and it was very frightening. And I could sense that all the people in the harbor area had gathered along the water because of some event, which I now believe to be a very bright flash of light from a meteor exploded as it entered the atmosphere. Someone came into, this was, remember, a dream, and got onto a bicycle and rode off into the water, which I figured would be a dream version of a jet ski. Went to a nearby ship of about 150 feet. As he approached the boat, I heard someone say something like, "Hey, look, there's an airplane," and we all looked up at the sky, and there was a gentleman who was American of African descent standing behind me. And I heard him say, "You're not supposed to be here. You should be in the red zone," which doesn't make sense. So I wonder, even if in the dream I heard him wrong. And as I was sitting there, we were talking, I was turning around and looking at him. I looked back around. The horizon darkened, and everyone seemed to be drawn to looking at it. And I had a brief thought that this might be the start of World War III, so I yelled in a very loud voice, "Don't look at the sky." And my voice carried out over the water like it was amplified. Oh. And I said the mention of the plane reminded me that it might be a nuclear detonation, so I knew that if you look up, you'll be blinded. And I was advising everybody not to look up, because if there's a nuclear detonation, your eyes are open, you're looking at it, the lens in your eye focuses the blast, or the thermal flash into your eye, and it burns. So there was a low wall between me and the water. I left there face down, covered my eyes, lying there for only a couple of seconds. Then I got up on my knees and placed my hands behind my head like you're supposed to do if you're in a lightning strike potential or after a hard run to breathe easier. And there was a billowing wall of water, and darkened sky seemed to leap up from the visible horizon, which was about a mile away. And so I rose to my feet and did just what I had yelled for the others not to do, which was stare at the cloud, and below it a rushing wall of water. And all I could think of was there's no way to survive this, and the spectacle is riveting and fascinating. And I stared at it frozen in space, the clouds looking just like those of a volcano, billowing from within, and watched as a spiral of ash and smoke billowed right at me. The sound was tremendous. It was a great roar. Then the wall of water hit me, and it felt like I was being tossed about 50 feet up in the air. And that's the end of the first vision that I ever had that led me sort of into the world of what might happen if there was a large detonation somewhere on Earth.
Huh. That's amazing. And this is one of the recurring things that you've had over time with different visions.
Yeah, I've had a bunch of different visions, and some of them have actually had Jesus in them. I've had several visions where I'm in a vision like, I don't know if I told you guys this one last time. I know I may have told you over the phone, but there's one where I was standing there watching two people get married. but they weren't taking the regular wedding vows. They were kind of doing sing-songy thing like children would do, even though they were adults, back and forth to each other like it was a joke. But they were making a deal with the devil back and forth to each other, and they were dressed as a bride and groom. The second they got done with saying the vows that they were doing, they fell onto this huge, like a square or a tic-tac-toe type grid of, it had to be blades of some sort, and it chopped them into pieces. They fell down onto this tremendous pile of bodies. And I looked in this vision, it was terrifying, because as I looked out over, it was like a big plane in front of me, but everywhere there were these huge pile of bodies everywhere. And I was terrified because I was thinking, oh, my God, I'm stuck here somehow. What have I done? You know, I couldn't imagine what kind of horrible fate it would be to have that sort of thing happen to you. And as that happened, I started to move, and I was looking to where the movement was and oriented and looked naturally downward, and I see this big robe and a pair of feet with sandals on it. And I knew it was like Jesus, and Jesus was carrying me in his arms, and he was walking down this like Roman road through this giant pile of bodies. And we were going to the end of it, but it was like he was showing me what was happening to people, even though they seemed to have a great life and were prospering, that in the world that he was going to be the judge of, that doing things like that had a very serious penalty. So I have visions like that, and then I have visions where it's just a geophysical event and there's nothing there but the image itself. It's kind of weird, and I don't know. The way I look at it, and I'll tell you guys flat out, I do pray a lot, and I talk, you know, when I talk to Jesus, I have a prayer, and sometimes I think that visions are just the way that he shares himself with people. In other words, Jesus is the embodiment. He's one with the Father, and the Father stretches throughout time. So that Christ, when he goes throughout time to reach people, you know, that believe in him, always knows what's going to happen in the future. And that's, you know, it was a burden to him to even become human, to reach out to us and save us and tell us about, you know, the wonderful things that he wants humanity to experience as opposed to the not so wonderful things that humanity often does to each other. So I've got other ones. Have you ever had any visions, Jay?
I've had dreams. I wouldn't call them visions. I've had dreams. One in particular that was I thought was very frightening. I was, gosh, I don't know how long ago this has been. A couple of them actually in a row. I guess I was living in Florida at the time, in my last year of law school. One of them I was dreaming. I was sitting around a table, like a picnic table outdoors, and I think we were having a cookout of some kind of barbecue, something like that, with some friends of mine. And all of a sudden, the sky got really, really dark, and chunks of meteors started like falling from the sky. I mean, it was going through, you know, the roofs of the houses, the tables, everywhere. I mean, it was just filling up the sky. That was a really terrifying nightmare. Then another one I had was I was standing, I don't know, I guess I was getting kind of an inside view of an elevator shaft. And there was a foreign man with looked very nice in a very expensive suit standing in the elevator shaft, and the elevator was going up. And I don't remember just a thought passing through me or through my mind saying, you know, well, something along the lines of, you know, what about the Antichrist, or something along the lines of Antichrist. And then the answer was, well, I'm already here, you know, and a laughter preceded that. And I woke up from that pretty shook too. It was man,
that's pretty terrifying sounding.
Yeah. It wasn't great.
Well, tell me more about the first one. Did you said you saw a lot of meteors hitting the Earth? About how big did they appear to be? Did they leave a huge crater, or was it?
No, these were
somewhat of a.
These were like, it was almost like rain. I mean, not as small as rain. There were chunks probably about the size of your fist, maybe a little bigger, maybe softball size. But there was just so much of them. You know, there were just multitudes of these things, and they were all like raining down upon the Earth.
And that was in Texas?
No, this was when I lived in Florida.
Oh, in Florida. Wow. Because that's very similar to some other dreams that I've read. The thing that I did what I'm trying to turn into a book, it's still not gelling quite yet the way I want it to. But I have a list of like almost a dozen or so dreams that seem to point to an impact in the Gulf of Alaska. And as I started to compile these dreams and look at all the information that was in them, it gave a very weird signature. It's like everybody's dream from the location they were at seemed to point to the same location. So. And I've got a second one. I don't know if I should read the whole thing out, but it was over. I had this one when I was working in Statesville. Okay. And maybe we'll get to that a little bit later. Maybe we can do that after the break.
Okay. Well, after the break, we're going to bring on your friend,
awesome. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to bring him on. So we've got about 3 more minutes before the top of the hour. I know that's not a lot of time to squeeze anything in, but go for it, Ron.
Well, the main thing was I'm proposing legislation. My website is www.civilizationcontinuity.org, and it's got a prototype of legislation and a resolution to the United Methodist Church. I'm still trying to refine the concept and get it presented, but what I believe the best course for American Christians to do is to go with your congregation. Things that I'm proposing is through the faith-based initiative. The President has designated this as our primary route for preparing civil defense, and civil defense is our primary route for survival if we are confronted with anything like global change or there's the whole Planet X thing coming in. And the second vision that I had starts off with a tremendous Hubble Space Telescope-like shot of a giant cloud of debris, and some of it starts to hit the Earth. And as I'm sitting there watching it hit the Earth, this tremendously large piece comes in, goes straight over the horizon to the west, I might add. It looks like it's heading towards where the Gulf of Alaska might be. The water depth there is about 4 miles, and it appears to be such a tremendous explosion that even though you can't see the actual explosion, it's over the horizon, you can see what scientifically is called the plume, or I can remember quite clearly seeing the plume go out into space and start to go around the Earth. And the description that you give of the very small meteors hitting all over the place sounds very much like tektites. I'm trying to find. Well, here's one. This is from a guy in England. He wrote, and he wrote this. Another person found this in the cemetery, but here's his dream. I often have a very frightening, realistic dream about what seems to be the end of the world. There is this huge meteor shower. Massive meteors are crashing to Earth all around me with tremendous force. I'm trying to take shelter with my mom and other family members in the garden shed. He puts 2 exclamation points after that. Some of the meteor impacts are so great they generate a kind of nuclear shockwave with a huge, rumbling, bassy sound. Throughout the dream, there's a desperate feeling of, oh, crap, I hope we can survive this, and perhaps not surprisingly. And he asked, does anyone else have this type of dream? I see a dream after dream after dream, even on websites. I called in and talked on Art Bell, and we talked a little bit. I talked about getting commodities, which is how you could buy bulk grains and how a community might store them, which is exactly what our next guest, Stop Hunger Now, creator Ray Buchanan, is going to be talking about, is how to turn bulk food into food that you can store right there in your community so that you are building in, it's actually hardening for civil defense, right in your community with your congregation, and you can also help people overseas.
And on that note, we're going to have to break, hard break at the top of the hour. You're listening to World of the Unexplained, Ron Paul Hunter, and we're going to have another guest coming right at you here at the top of the hour at 5 after. You're listening to World of the Unexplained, 877-722-7382. Give us a call. We'll be back after this.
Remember when paranormal radio used to be open to New Age ideas and every possible form of spiritual enlightenment?
It's a religion based on the understanding of consciousness, the understanding of nature, in particular fertility laws.
To my spirit guides are those who have passed over. And, I've always been able to see colors around people, which I've known now to be called auras.
Maybe coming to the close of one kind of psychic life, and I very much believe that this was what the Maya were really trying to talk about.
Well, we're not putting up with that. World of the Unexplained, conservative paranormal talk. Big on God, big on guns. With your hosts Jay Scott and Trent Lackey. Heard Mondays, live from 8 to 10 Eastern on Planet Paranormal Radio. In life, you only need 2 things. A Bible and a gun. What one can't take care of,
Dominus vobiscum.
The other one can. World of the Unexplained. Conservative paranormal talk. Big on God. Big on guns. With your hosts Jay Scott and Trent Lackey. Heard Mondays, live from 8 to 10 Eastern.
And we're back, World of the Unexplained. We have a surprise guest for you, Mr. Ray Buchanan, the founder and president of Stop Hunger Now. You can visit their site, www.stophungernow.org. Anyway, Mr. Buchanan has, you may have seen him on Fox News or any of the other shows out there. Chuck was pointing out that he thought he had seen him on Fox News. He earned his bachelor's degree from University of North Carolina at Wilmington, Master of Divinity from Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary, and a Doctor of Divinity from Shenandoah University and Conservatory. And he co-founded Stop Hunger Now in 1998. And he also served in the U.S. Marine Corps in Vietnam. Mr. Buchanan, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be on. It's a pleasure.
Well, thank you for coming on. Tell us about your program here.
Well, basically, Stop Hunger Now was started with a vision of a world without hunger. And prior to beginning Stop Hunger Now, I was co-director of a domestic hunger program for 18 years. I co-founded and co-led the Society of St. Andrew for 18 years, and that was basically a program that salvaged vegetables that were perfectly good but cosmetically unacceptable for the market.
Okay.
And over 500 million pounds of vegetables have been saved from the dump, literally, through that program and gotten to Native American reservations, food banks, and other organizations feeding the hungry in the United States. And, you know, the bottom line for me is we live in the richest, most affluent nation in the history of the planet. And it's obscene that there are over 35 million Americans that go hungry on a regular basis. There's just no way you can rationalize that or explain it away. And that's why I spent a big part of my ministry working with the hungry in this country. But even though we have 35 million Americans that go hungry on a regular basis, and what I mean by that is they go without food or go with limited food 2 or 3 days every month. And that is, there's no way to rationalize that away. As I said, it's an obscenity. But at the same time that we have 35 million of our citizens that don't have enough to eat, that pales in comparison to the fact that around the world there are over 30,000 people that die every single day because they don't get enough food to eat. Now, they don't all starve to death. I'm not saying that. But they die because chronic hunger and malnutrition has weakened them so much that diseases that should not be deadly are deadly. And so between hunger, malnutrition, and related diseases, over 30,000 people die every single day. What's so horrifying about that to me, besides, you know, speaking from a Christian's perspective, is that the reality of it is, according to Christian scriptures and other scriptures as well, to be honest with you, all agree that the earth was created perfectly. And what that means for us today is that right now there is more than enough food on this planet to feed every one of the human family. In fact, there's so much food available right now that if you took just the grain that's available, and I'm talking wheat, rice, corn, barley, millet, sorghum, just the grains alone, nothing else, every person on this planet would have enough grain to have a diet of about 3,500 calories a day.
Wow.
And everybody agrees that most people need 2,000 to 2,500 calories a day for an active, normal life. And so we have far more, 3,500 calories a day just from the grain that's available.
That's insane.
Count meat. It doesn't count fish, poultry, vegetables, nuts, oils, berries, fruits. All of that is on top of 3,500 calories. So, you know, my perspective on this is that I am really saddened by the fact that as supposedly a Christian nation, we don't have enough compassion to make sure that that food is shared properly so that part of the human family doesn't have to starve to death.
It's a sad thing, and you know, for those of you guys out there listening that don't know, I used to work at the first the second Harvest Food Bank in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. There's, you know, you can go out there, and we had a lot of volunteers that would come out there, and you can take, you know, your friends and family, go out there for a day and help these people out, bring some food in. I think Chuck had a question.
Well, actually, I was wondering if your organization has worked at all in conjunction with Edward's Poverty Center that he's been working on over at UNC over there in your neck of the woods.
I have met the senator and talked with him on occasion, but we haven't made a formal connection at this point. I do. He does listen, and the same thing is true with the congressional representatives in the area. We've got some really good congressmen with David Price and Bob Etheridge and Brad Miller. All three of them listen and are interested and do what they can to try to make a difference. And that's rewarding, to be honest with you. But the thing for me is I left domestic hunger work because even though there are 35 million people in this country that go hungry, none of them die because they don't have enough food to eat. In fact, if anybody dies of hunger in the United States, it makes headlines because it's such a rarity. And around the world, you think about 30,000 people dying every single day. It puts the, things in perspective, like the World Trade Center was a horrible, unbelievable, unmitigated disaster that never should have happened. But you think about the numbers there that have changed the way we live in this country and around the world forever, and yet every single day 10 times that many people die unnecessarily. Not once in a lifetime, but every single day.
Or for that matter, 60,000 people die in automobile accidents a year. I mean, you don't hear that, championed in the media.
Well, yeah.
You don't hear that.
But the people... go ahead. Well,
again, 60,000 people a year, that's what dies in 2 days.
Wow.
Because of hunger and hunger-related causes.
And I think what it is... Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's without major climate degradation, too. Degradation.
That's exactly right.
Oh, my gosh. So that's the baseline just for the close to 6 billion people on the planet, that there's so much regional disturbances like little wars or reasons of temporary displacements of the climate, which could be getting worse, which means the 30,000 is a baseline figure that we have to work on, but it may climb. That was like one of my main points is this isn't a time to look back and say things will always be the way they were in the past.
No, I know
that we know as a civilization says that things change. So, to be ready for that means we have to use the tools that we have available today. Everybody has to use them, not just a few people.
No, I know how Ron feels about this, but and the way that I feel about it as well. How do you feel, Ray, about? Do you think we're living in the end times? Do you think this is a sign of the times with the famine, with the upheaval in the Middle East? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
No, to be honest with you, my theology is a little different. I've always felt like, God is a God of love, and He's in charge of everything. And when the end times come, He'll be in charge of that, just like everything else. And so I've got my plate full trying to deal with everything I'm dealing with today. And so if it's the end times, it's the end times. I don't spend a lot of time worrying about it. I'd rather spend my time on something that I can make a difference on.
That's amazing.
That's saving people's lives.
And that's great.
All right, man.
Well, that's like myself as well. I mean, I have a garden every year, and when I have like a surplus of all my fruit, my vegetables and things that I grow, I go around to the people in my neighborhood, ask them if they want any, free vegetables, and if they don't want any, I usually wind up taking several of mine to like Sunnyside Ministries and that kind of stuff, or if like my wife and I, if we have like a big cookout with our family, and there's like 25 or 30 hot dogs left over that nobody wanted.
25 or 30, good Lord, man.
Well, dude, there's like 150 people that go to my family reunions.
Wow.
So.
Okay.
So, and we'll wind up taking that, as soon as that ends, that day, we'll take that straight over there and give it to them so the guys at the homeless shelter,
Well, no, I mean, I understand that, but I think what Ray's hitting on more is the fact that it's more of a world problem than a United States problem, and the problem is that the media won't cover it because it's something we don't want to know about, we don't want to see.
We don't want to know about it, and it's not sexy, to be honest with you. If a terrorist attacks and kills 50 people, that's sexy, but if a person has to hold a dying child for months in their arms and watch it waste away, you know, you only have to look in a mother's eyes one time to realize there's no pain that can be like that. And, you know, I read once that hunger is hell. And I'll tell you what's hell is holding these dying children in your arms and knowing that there's no reason for them to be wasting away except for selfishness, greed, and a lack of caring and compassion. You know, that's what really, bottom line, gets me way too aggravated, I guess, is that we claim to be followers of a compassionate God, and yet the lack of compassion on our part really indicates that we follow more with our mouth than we do with our heart.
Oh, you're totally right. I saw a poll recently, actually, that cited poverty at the very bottom as far as priority to the American people, national issues. It ranked like at 2 or 3%.
Huh.
And so you're definitely right that there's no empathy there.
That's exactly right. But, you know, the one thing I want to say is that, you know, my position, and this comes out of over 25 years' experience working with the poor and the hungry, both in the United States and around the world, is that every one of us can make a difference if we really want to. There's nothing that any individual can do on behalf of the hungry that doesn't make a difference. Everything we do makes a difference, whether it's talking to somebody about the reality of hunger, or learning a little more about hunger, or taking our hot dogs we have left over to a homeless shelter, or writing a letter to our congressman, or writing a letter to the editor. All of those things, even though they might seem very small and insignificant, everything we do makes a difference on behalf of the hungry. And that is one of the reasons why Stop Hunger Now started the Operation Share House that Ron has been talking about, is because we wanted to help folks see that they really could make a difference. On a strategic level, on a systemic level, the reality of hunger is such that all the experts agree that we could cut hunger in half in 10 years simply by providing a school feeding program internationally like we have here in the United States. You know, one of the most effective government programs we've ever had is the school lunch program. Everybody on both sides of the aisles agree that it worked. It brought a lot of the folks in our country, into a place where they could learn, and medically it's been shown to have enormous, benefits for our nation. If you did that overseas, if you did that internationally, everybody realizes that we could cut hunger in half in 10 years. And one of the things that's so exciting about that is that if you look at school feeding programs, a lot of things happening all at one time. Number one, kids are getting fed that normally wouldn't be fed. And because of that, immediately, if you start a school feeding program, school enrollment doubles. And that makes sense because parents with hungry children will send their children to school because that means there's more food at home for this family that's left. And so a lot more kids go to school. That means they get fed and they're not as malnourished, but it also means they get that education which helps break the cycle of poverty and gives a chance for, gaining a foothold in life. Right. But at the same time, for me at least, one of the most exciting things about that is when you start doubling the number of kids in school, most of that increase in numbers is actually made up of girls. Girls around the world are the ones who normally don't get a chance to go to school. They have to stay home and take care of the children, the chores, the sick, and whatever else needs to be taken care of. And so they are the ones that are usually uneducated. And when we've done baseline studies, and these have been going on now for 25, 30 years, it is a proven fact that when girls get even a primary education, it changes the entire region that they're living in. One of the most stunning numbers, just to make it easy to grasp, but if a girl doesn't have the ability to read and write. The birth rate averages over 8 children per woman. If women learn to read and write, the birth rate drops to 2.9 children a woman.
Oh.
So just that one statistic, when you start talking about dropping the birth rate, you're talking about population density, you're talking about maternal health, you're talking about infant mortality, you're talking about so many things that have a ripple effect throughout society. And so school feeding programs is a win-win-win situation. And with our program, one of the things we're doing with Operation Share House is providing meals for school feeding programs, trying to build on the possibility of making major systemic change and, honestly, ending hunger in my lifetime. I don't want much in life, but I do want hunger to be eliminated before I die. And the reason for that is because it's right, and it's possible. And I can't think of a greater legacy for our generation to leave our children and our grandchildren than a world where hunger is just a memory.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be judged harshly if this generation passes and we have not ended hunger.
I have a question for you. A lot of these places that a lot of these people in these places that you feed, do you think the reason that America, and don't get me wrong, I'm a fairly conservative, independent kind of guy, and you'll never hear me pull a race card, but except maybe this time. And do you think that the reason America ignores a lot of these people and their hunger needs is because they're brown people and they're not Caucasian?
I don't think that's the reason as much as they don't have anything we want.
I see what you're saying.
I won't go with the race, but I'll go with the greed.
Okay. Well, that's perfectly...
We're in Iraq, and we're interested in Iran, and we're interested in Saudi Arabia. Why? Because they have something we want.
Coffee.
We're not interested in Sudan. We're not interested in Somalia. We're not interested in Rwanda or Burundi. Why? Because they don't have anything we want. And the bottom line is, we'll work where it's to our benefit, and the devil take the rest. And that's a pretty sad indictment of our government policies, but that's the reality of it. And again, that goes back. Our government is. I don't think our government is Christian. It's a democracy. It's made up of all kind of individuals, some Christian, some not.
Yeah.
And so there's no reason why you'd expect the government to act any way other than in the best interest of the nation. And that's not always apparent to be Christian. So they do what they need to do. But as individuals and as members of churches and as supposedly followers of the Jesus of Nazareth, it just appalls me that we allow things to go on the way they do, and we don't make a bigger statement about how that's not in keeping with what we really believe.
Now, how can people donate to your cause, Ray?
Well, there's a lot of ways. If you go to our website, people can really see what we're doing. But the most exciting thing is this Operation Share House, like I told you. And what that is we have volunteers come together. And the volunteers take 4 simple ingredients. We take rice, dehydrated vegetables, textured soy protein, and chicken flavoring with 21 vitamins. And people put all those in a funnel, and they go into a bag, and each bag holds 6 meals. And the meals wind up costing 20 cents each, and it's a highly nutritious meal for a day. You boil it with water for 20 minutes, and you've got a sort of like a chicken-flavored rice casserole. It's a very hearty. You eat it with a fork. And the people who taste it really say it tastes good. In fact, I'll give you a quick story. We had a donor, a major donor of ours, that the first time he met us, he pledged $25,000 to our, work. and he was going to bring us the first half of that. And when we met him the first time, we gave him a bag of these meals just for him to show to his wife and other friends. And he came back and he said he and his wife cooked it. Huh. And it was so good, they ate 4 meals out of it.
Wow.
And he wondered if he could get another bag. Now, this
so it tastes good, too.
You know, knock off a $25,000 check and said, you know, those meals are so good that I want some more.
Wow.
And so, you know, the food is good. But the exciting thing is this. It's 20 cents a meal. That means that $1 provides 5 meals, $100 provides 500 meals for people who might otherwise not eat.
Wow.
It's, you know, meals that encourage kids to go to school. But the other part of it
do you mind if I break in for a second?
Sure.
You said those are specific type of meals, right? Those are designed for famine relief?
They're designed for famine relief. That's exactly right. They're the thing that's so exciting about it. Once we put them in the bags and they're sealed, they have a shelf life of 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
And so that makes them great for storage and use. In fact, I talked with one of the scientists at Cargill on Saturday night. I was at a national conference about groups putting these meals together, and I talked to there were about 15 or 20 scientists at Cargill, Pillsbury, General Foods, and Archer Daniel Midlands that all worked together on the recipe. And this man said he had a bag of food that, let's see, it's been 14 years and the food is still perfectly good. He said now it's been kept under perfect conditions.
Yeah.
You know, it hadn't been in the sun and it hadn't gotten to 150 degrees, and it's been in his office, but after 14 years the food would be just as nutritious now as it was when it was put together.
So you're basically talking about, though, providing 5, you know, I'm sorry, 25 meals for basically the cost of a cup of coffee at Starbucks.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. So it doesn't take much to make a difference. The other aspect of this is that's of so much fun is that when volunteers get together to package it, you know, you put 20 or 30 volunteers in a room and let them work for an hour and a half to 2 hours, and they will come up with anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 meals.
Wow, that's amazing.
It just moves that fast. For an example, one of the things that really is exciting is last year the freshman class at North Carolina State University for their freshman service project packaged meals for us. And we had 700 students, and they packaged in 2-hour shifts, the 3 2-hour shifts. And in 6 hours, those students packaged 150,000 meals.
Wow.
And they had so much fun, and it was so successful that this year on August the 25th, there are not going to be 700 students, but there's going to be 1,500 students and faculty and members of the community that are going to come together, and they're going to package 300,000 meals.
Wow.
And so, you know, it doesn't take much to make a difference.
Ray, I've got one more thing. I wanted to bring up was that you're an expanding operation, despite the fact that you've been doing this for a quarter of a century. That your operation, which is, I think you're based out of Raleigh at a United Methodist Church here, right? But you've only got 3 warehouses now, and I think this is something that should go nationwide. So could you elaborate a little bit on that?
We definitely planning on taking it nationwide. I've been asked to come into a number of universities as far away as University of Idaho, Oklahoma State, Auburn, and a few others that want us to bring this college packaging thing to them, which we will as soon as we can. We've only been doing this for a year and a half. That's the exciting thing. We started in January of 2006, and in our first year, we packaged 1.7 million meals. This year, by the end of June, we packaged 1.6 million meals. And, you know, our goal is to ratchet that on up as fast as we can because the need is so great that we're not gonna meet the need anytime soon. So we need volunteers. We need people who are interested in getting their hands dirty to do something on behalf of the hungry. And then we need a lot of folks who just says, you know, I can't do a lot, but I can do a little, and, you know, I'll provide $5 and that'll be 20 meals, or I'll provide $10 and provide 50 meals. That goes a long way to make sure that hungry people get fed.
That's just amazing. Amazing. Well, the website is www.stophungernow.org. That's stophungernow.org. Ray Buchanan, thank you so much for coming on our show tonight.
Thank you very much, and God bless you. You just keep up the good work.
All right, God bless you too. And we're back, World of the Unexplained, Ron Paul Hunter, and we've got Gail back from Clemens, North Carolina. Gail, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, Gail.
Hey.
Don't sound so happy.
Yeah,
Gosh.
come on now.
I just had a couple of comments.
Okay.
I don't mean to play devil's advocate, but
yeah, you do.
That's what I do. So, just some comments that I was thinking about during that last segment. He was talking about, sending these packets of food that have these different nutrients and the rice and dehydrated veggies and whatever in them. But America already actually does that. Different organizations do that, and it sits in warehouses and spoils in other countries because they do not want to give the food to their people, because then their people would realize, oh, there's something better out there. These countries are usually, sometimes in Africa, sometimes in other places, they're usually more like dictatorships or kingships, and the people in power keep the riches and spoils from the country for themselves and never distribute them anywhere else. So along with feeding people or actually getting the food to the people, you have to somehow get it by the government, and I'd like to know how he plans on doing that, because we've tried in the past and haven't been able. And then also, along with that, how do you know that the government won't just keep the food for themselves or pass it out when they choose to?
Well, that's always the problem with international relief, and you're right. Those are two major problems. There's, I've been told by, and I've gone to agricultural classes and studied with some great people at NC State, and some of the speakers they brought in to talk before me that helped me learn a lot of what I've learned told me that the Sudan is rich enough land that if you could properly farm it, it would feed the entire continent of Africa.
But they don't want to do that, because then their people would be strong.
Well, no, it's not. If you're saying they don't want to do that, you're talking about a very small majority of the people. Even less than the normal amount of people that run a country is 3 to 5% of the country are involved in the government. So you're talking about an even smaller number than the 3 to 5%. And a lot of these people are very either right wing or left wing, very prone to military force. So, but see, there were even problems like that in Katrina and post Katrina. There were some convoys of supplies that came down from churches that were met with people who were wearing masks and weapons, and it was a desperate situation right here in America. So, that's sort of a universal problem with getting relief into an area is once the agricultural surplus, once the food surplus starts to break down, civilization breaks down unless you have a really good plan to respond to it. And since we are allegedly facing a series of times in the future where our climate may not be stable and we may not be able to depend on always having an agricultural surplus, the more time we spent working with programs like Stop Hunger Now, like ideally, and this is what I was talking with Jay a little bit about, and I want to thank Ray Buchanan again from Stop Hunger Now for spending the time to save my pathetic radio effort here.
Come on now.
Well, the point I was making with Jay was that if for us to be able to do something, I think it's the federal government's responsibility to provide, and I talked with Ray about this earlier today, all the weapons that we have, and we spend a lot of money on military output. We spend a lot of money on our military to make sure that they are as well equipped as they can be. And the equipment's not 110%, but that's a whole other story. The point is that all the weapons in the world are not going to produce food if we start to run out, or if another country starts to run out. So in order for us, we need the military, and the military has to make separate civil defense preparations from the rest of the country because they're responsible for guarding not only the population concentrations. I call them, if you get organized as a congregation, it becomes a citizen packet in government speak. But that basically means you stay with your congregation, the government tries to protect you if there is some kind of widespread disaster. And we've had plans to deal with nuclear war since the 1950s, and I'm sure most people are generally familiar with those. So when we say that having a non-military output program, what I would like to see is a group effort. You said you work with Habitat for Humanity. I want to see the whole nation come in and put the same kind of effort that the freshmen did at NC State and work on 1 month with Habitat for Humanity and try to see how many houses that could be built, prefabricated, disassembled, and then reassembled by federal troops, even if this would cost billions of dollars, because if we ever need something like this to become a conduit of national survival, and we do not have a program that makes it easy for people to participate in, the result is that people are going to do what they think is in their best interest at the moment, and they become as bad as dictators of African countries, even though we're all, nice to each other now.
I mean, again, playing devil's advocate, I agree that America has a role to play in global politics and economy, but who says that we have to pay for everything?
Well, and
why can't those countries who have diamonds, and why can't those countries who have natural resources like oil and whatever else sell those things, make money off of them, again, distribute that money to the people, and then their own people can help themselves? Because just like in Iraq, America went into Iraq to free the people, but that never works. When another country frees you, that doesn't work. You have to free yourself and work for what you want to gain to understand how important it is. And if those people get freed and get everything from America or Britain or Sweden or Germany or whoever wants to send it to them, they're never going to know how to work for their own stuff. And then again, when we stop giving to them, then they go, oh, wait, now we have to do something for ourselves. Oh, no, what's going to happen? We're screwed again.
That's an important Christian point, too, is that, and that's one of the things that I wish Ray was here because I wish I could talk to him more about this. But what I feel about things that there is a time when we come to where we have to work together to share food and live together communally because our planet is under stress and our climate doesn't produce as much as we're used to it doing, is one of those foundational things of Christianity, is that God fundamentally wants everyone to feel his love in their heart and know that you can leave a group of people under stress and they won't resort to horrible things, such as killing each other or, even worse, some people have gone to cannibalism in the past, like the Donner Party is a perfect example. People set out to be settlers, had a great dream of how they were going to live a new life. Their plans went astray. They ran out of food. They ended up resorting to cannibalism. Some people say murder. That's typical of what people in America could be capable of, at least in our past. So, it's not about painting horrible pictures, but it's about saying as long as we've got some spare time, can't we spend our time, a little bit of our time, to participate in politics and get a civil defense upgrade to our system so that the government will provide us programs? Like when there was the threat of nuclear war, you could participate in almost any kind of civil defense program that you wanted. You could be medical, you could help with fixing cars or whatever it was that you usually did. You just agreed if there was an emergency, you would do it in conjunction with other people for the betterment of all the people that were living where you lived. So doing something like that is the government's responsibility, and asking them nicely to do it isn't going to work.
Ron,
got to go
I was wondering, actually, how much of the problem do you think is actually related to the federal government, the fact that they subsidize our food supply in this country so that other foreign countries, third world nations can't develop because they have no income revenue, because otherwise they would be growing the food that we would be eating.
Right, and to a certain extent, they're starting to. There's starting to be less and less trade barriers to importing food into America.
But see,
one of them. Okay, go ahead.
Well, the foreign aid from the United States just serves to keep a lot of these populations down and represses them. The natural order of things is if these people were starving, and it's sort of social Darwinism. That if they had the necessity to revolt, maybe they would. But the U.S. foreign aid just keeps them sort of pacified under these dictatorships.
Well, the U.S. interests are often, the U.S. has been under assault as to, being able to project our actual interests for quite some time. A lot of people participate in our government. A lot of countries don't see U.S. interests as their own interests and attack our government. It tends to mire things down. People fall to corruption. We have a very strong political system, and we have to rely on that system to try to elect the people we think will do best. In conjunction with electing them, we need legislation that defines what we as Americans want. And a lot of what we as Americans are going to need if we have a period where we can't do things the same old way, we're going to want something that works. We're not going to want something that we slap together at the last minute. Wow, you guys still there?
Yeah, we're here. I think we lost our caller.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Well, that's okay. She made some good points, though, and it's like I said, this is all a lot of ground to cover. Throwing the faith-based initiative out there and jumping back and forth from talking about a government legislative effort into a faith-based initiative and then going into pure religion where you're talking about just a relationship with Jesus, that's something that's taken me a lot of time and has wrecked my brain over and over again trying to figure out how best to do this. But, every time I start to get discouraged, I look at the faith-based initiative. That's what it's designed to do. It's designed to allow charities to start to take their traditional place in American culture. I believe that's what the president's intent was. was for us to participate in our congregation. We support the congregation, and in turn, the congregation donates man-hours to help federal people participate in this broad spectrum of programs that constitute not only a decent civil defense plan, but also enhance the Christian lifestyle, allow it to become functional. That's what I've envisioned, and that's what I would like to see, literally would like to see in every single county of residence. Stop Hunger Now. I'd like to see it there tomorrow.
Hey, Ron, we've got another caller. It's Chris from Atlanta.
Okay, go with that.
Hey, Ron, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, Chris, I'm doing just fine. How are things in Atlanta?
Things are a little warm. It's not too hot just yet. I wish I had more time, honestly, to just rip into you and poke so many holes in everything you're saying, because while I believe that it is admirable and wonderful that you want to help so many people, I don't think that you and the minister, Reverend Pat Buchanan, are looking at the long-run thing here. First of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into something he said. I might have the number wrong, but he stated that 300,000 people die from hunger-related complications a day, correct?
I think he said 30,000, yeah.
30,000.
Oh, 30,000. Okay, well, I mean, if we were able to wind up just helping a third of those people, let's say 10,000 people live a day. In 10
that's
days.
On average, too. You know that, right? Like
right, I understand. That's an average. So over a year, it would still be an average. But for a day, if we were to save 10,000 people in 10 days, that's 100,000 people. Okay? In 100 days, that's 1 million people. In 1 year, that's 3 million people. How are we going to wind up housing all these individuals? How are we going to wind up clothing them? I mean, you guys have got the feeding down pat. That's not a problem, because they're obviously going to be living, reproducing, and burdening our planet even more. Have you ever thought that maybe the starvation is actually nature's way of kind of like balancing this overpopulation we have already?
Well, you sound like Ebenezer Scrooge, don't we?
Yeah, but I don't believe...
I wish I could have called in earlier, because I tell you what, right now, I could spend 2 hours just ripping you apart.
Oh, my
God.
God.
I mean, that's just one thing. The second thing, let's see, you're talking about in the event of a major catastrophe, an asteroid hitting the Earth. Now, let's overlook the fact that all of your dreams are actually what are called extinction-level events, where it doesn't matter what kind of civil service you have, you're going to die.
I disagree.
When a giant asteroid hits the ocean and then causes the steam cloud, it's pretty much going to be like the dinosaurs all over again.
See, I don't believe I'm called to be just a human or just an animal. In the first place, I'm a human in an advanced civilization. I have the ability to analyze things as they're presented to me and make contingencies and simulation. Part of what I would like to see, first off, is to have impact events, since we have the mathematics, and the mathematics due to Shoemaker-Levy 9 impacting Jupiter and being testing with a lab called, I think it's Sandia National Labs, has a huge supercomputer program that simulated the impact so that they know their mathematics are correct. If I go to them and say there's going to be a 300 to 600 gigaton explosion in the Gulf of Alaska, they can put that into the simulator and put in every single congregation in America and develop an actual civil defense plan that could be followed from point A to point B to give people the highest probability of survival. What you're looking at when you're talking about things like us saving people and how are they going to feed and shelter themselves, they would have to do it themselves. But you know, you say you got a very cynical outlook towards this, and you feel very fatalistic. I understand 100%. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's driven me crazy. Believe me, I'm not a stupid person. It takes a lot of time to think about these things, but it's to reach out to frustrated people like you, because you feel like no matter what you do, it's not going to make a difference. And Ray was talking about that too. So he may see
now,
things
you
a little
see,
differently
actually, here's
than I
where
do.
I have to wind up contradicting you on that, because I am actually a good Samaritan, even though I'm a borderline atheist agnostic. I donate blood regularly. When was the last time you donated blood? I donate to Goodwill on a regular basis. I'm actually helping my ex-fiance's daughter set up a program called Stuff Smiles to get toys for children in critical care wards.
There's nothing wrong with that, man.
I might sound cynical, am actually a realist, but I'm a good realist at that. Now, taking what you've been saying tonight, I do have one major question. You keep talking about how having the Christian community of America come together and fight adversity and overcome these horrible natural events. I just have one little question. Are you going to allow black people in? because you've already isolated and ostracized
come on now.
Muslims.
Come on now. Yeah, and you know what? I ostracized the Muslims too here, okay?
Yeah, which you probably shouldn't do quite as often. I mean, I don't participate in ostracizing anybody.
I do.
FEMA inspector. Well, look, I work for FEMA. Do you realize what that does to my personality? I can't even be mean to people because part of my job was to walk into someone's disaster. Where else are they going to get help? I was it, you know. I don't know if people understand how the system works right now, but there isn't very much of one. And to people standing in the midst of what used to be their houses still in New Orleans and parts of Texas and parts of Alabama, it's still not funny, you know. It's like we sit here because we haven't been wiped out yet, but the federal government hasn't provided the means for the people that want to help to do so efficiently, and they haven't provided the help that people need to reestablish themselves.
Oh, you're totally right, Ron. I down in New Orleans right now, there are people still living in those trailers getting sick from all sorts of strange diseases as a result from living in these trailer parks.
You're right, but look at the trailers. Look at the ships they put in. In the organization, they wanted to help. Oh, they wanted to help. I went down there. I wanted to help. Congregation after congregation goes down there. They want to help, but we haven't put a big enough effort in for the amount of man-hours that it needs to really turn things around. Your caller from Atlanta, look, man, those are all beautiful things that you're doing, but it's not like a contest. It's something that you do inside to make you feel good. And I want you to feel good about what I'm talking about, but it's like trying to, I can't instill Christianity in someone, and I do have the easy way out. This is when I was praying, I kind of got this as a feeling from Jesus that he wanted me to convey this to people, is that it's not any harder to be saved than to just ask Jesus into your life and know that like a lifeguard, he dives into like the world that we're in if we have trouble or whatever. He has to save us. We never save ourselves. Like when Jesus came into my life, it was because I was ready to pray and that I could see him in the Spirit when I was praying to him, and thus through that seeing, I believed. But everybody doesn't see at the same time. Some people don't see it all, or some people see different things. So I say, you know, believe in what you believe in, man. You're going to believe in what you see in your mind or what you see in front of you. And so, you know, being saved is a state of mind, and it's got thousands of years that go with it. It's got a lot of people that have died to convey the messages from one age to another. And part of, I think, what that message
so many crusades that have wiped out so many people just to convey your message.
No,
yeah,
you're absolutely
I'm right there with
man,
you. See, I would much rather want to do something good because it's good for someone else and it's good for me than to be able to feel good about my imaginary friend looking down on me from up high.
Okay, cut him off. He's out. Chris, you're out of here. You're out of here. You're out of line. All right, this is my show.
It doesn't go with the show. But, man, I've heard those arguments before. I know people that say the same thing. They're not really – it's hard to be, you know, like everybody said, and this is why I say this stuff over and over again. As being a Christian, there are certain parts of the Bible you have to recite constantly. And one of those is when the question was asked, who wants to do God's work? The answer wasn't everybody. The answer was nobody. Only Jesus was worthy to go and do everything that Christians are supposed to do. Nobody else was worthy. And who came to do God's work? Who came to really serve God? And Pat was talking about this. Nobody. Not one of us really wants to serve God. We want to go live our lives, and we do every day. And I live, you know, a decent life for a person compared to 100 years ago, much less 1,000 years ago. We're all living like kings. You know, we all have the things that kings dreamed of. Kings of old never lived as good as we do. I have a supercomputer. It's something that wasn't even conceived of 100 years ago. I was born into a nation, has thousands of thermonuclear weapons. You know, our military out there right now is fighting to the death trying to create law and order in another country, but what they're really spending their blood for is so we don't use those strategic weapons on another nation. We have matured that much that not only do we and have we had this power to inflict upon the world, but that we do not use it. So every argument people have that say America isn't mature and that the president's crazy, I see signs of saying that it's such a high-stress battle and there's so much at stake. You know, at some point you have to decide what you believe for yourself, but I think that getting into a Christian political movement, not directed by your congregational leader, but by being a citizen in our nation and being a part of the majority and knowing that we have to provide food in the future and that we have adequate weapons to defend ourselves is the major point that I was trying to make. And there's the 299 other people is why I'm going to try to call it the 299 Act, is that even if you don't believe in Jesus, you can use the faith-based initiative and join as part of a civic group. The government will see a congregation just as a civic group. It sees your house as something called real property, and it sees everything that you own in your house as personal property. That's how FEMA sees it. So, I have a bunch of programs that I've developed, and sure, I'd like to see them implemented, and I think it would make an excellent restoration for our civil defense program. But it has to be done in the proper way, and I think it has to be done based around food production and food storage, because if we lose that ability to feed our citizens, things will rapidly decline, and we will be shocked at what happens to our nation.
Ron, I hate to do this to you, but we're going to have to take off, and we appreciate you coming back on, and we'll have to have you again on sometime.
Man, I would really appreciate it if we can get together again. I love the opportunity that you've given me, and I know I was just so thrilled that Ray got on and was actually able to talk about what he's doing, because I'm so excited about what he's put forward. I know we don't always see eye to eye, but that's what America's all about. We have a legal system for us to reach out and change the things we don't like, to order our government to do things through legislation, and we as Christians can always pray. We can pray the Lord's Prayer, and we can go to church together, and we can decide what to do. Don't be scared to participate in government. The separation of church and state doesn't say that. Get involved, but not too much. Just what's comfortable, but do something.
Well, thanks so much. Ron Paul Hunter, we appreciate you, buddy.
All right, man, Jay.
Take
God
care.
bless you guys. Take care.
God bless
Bye-bye.
you, too. Bye-bye. And that was Ron Paul Hunter. That was quite a feisty show there.
Towards the end there.
That really was a pretty heated exchange between him and Chris. And you know what? I didn't even have a chance to ask Chris how he felt about old Ron Mexico and his troubles down there in Hot Lena.
Oh, man. I tell you what. That's
See? Told you we needed a multi-line.
that would have got too crazy. No one would be able to hear anything. Everybody be yelling around. It
was pretty much at that point.
It was getting out of hand. Yeah. I'm glad I'm louder than everybody else.
You really are, and I
know.
got the gain cut down.
I know. I'm just a loud, forceful kind of guy. I like cutting people off, though. It is kind of fun from time to time.
I saw it in your eye, man. It looked like you enjoyed it.
You're like, here comes the Michael Savage. It's coming. Get him out of here. You're out. You're off. That's great. I think what Michael Savage does, honestly, I think his producer has a mute button on. Because if you notice, I don't know, have you ever listened to the show that much?
Yeah, actually, I think the FNC people do that on there.
They just mute the guest.
That's the only way you can hear the broadcast.
I mean, it's like, okay, well, he's talking now, mute. It's like, oh, man. And so we come to the end of another program. Next week, it's a surprise. I've got to update the site really bad. I've got to get some older podcasts up really bad, too. I think we're 3 weeks behind now.
Oh, I thought you had caught up there.
I did until, the other week. So
is Ethan up there yet?
No, that was what was stopping me.
One.
Yeah. But that's okay. I mean, that's going to be fixed, and we'll get it on, and hopefully we'll have Trent back here again with us next week, back from Massachusetts, returning from the Yankee State.
Bod Crane.
Wow, we've got a new nickname for Trent. Oh, Barry White just dubbed it. Ichabod Crane.
Sorry, Trent.
It's all right. This is Jay Scott. You're only JDDJ on the Omni Sound Radio 1 Network saying happy July 23rd or whatever it is. Is it the 23rd?
It's the 23rd.
Okay, all right.
All day.
And we'll see you guys next week. D.
This is D. Coming from Kernersville, North Carolina. Small town, we're talking about big things.
And I guess that leaves the last 15 seconds to Mr. Chuck Browder. Chuck, go ahead. Do whatever.
Whatever.
Do whatever. Whatever.
You like that?
I do.
Okay, guys. We out!